What a headshot! What a head!
How's it, guys? This is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. Now in this video, I'm going to take you guys through a wildcard draft for the upcoming double game week 29. So as usual, lots of requests for the wildcard chip draft, but these videos are always going to be relevant to those of you on the chip and those of you without the chip. I know personally I won't be wildcarding as I already wildcarded in game week 26, but I still use this team as a little bit of a guideline of options I should be bringing in with free transfers and for hits. Now, a quick disclaimer here, I'm recording this on Tuesday afternoon, so there are still games to happen in double game week 28, which are going to be 4 games happening on Thursday, so there might be some talking points that change in this video when those games are played. But in this video, I'll be going through some background of double game week 29 as well as the game week schedule before finally looking at the draft for game week 29 and also blank game week 30. So that's something you guys are interested in. Sit back, relax, and let's get straight into it. So as you guys have become accustomed to on these wildcard and free drafts, I'm going to be taking a look at Mikkel Tokvam's very good graphic yet again. Now if you guys don't know what this graphic actually means, I'll give you guys a quick rundown, but if you have already seen it, maybe just skip forward about 30 seconds. But this is going to be the game week schedule from now till game week 38. A 1.00 means that that's going to be a single game week. Anything between 1 and 2, 2 is a confirmed double, whereas between 1 and 2 is a probability of a double game week, and the higher the number, the bigger the probability. Anything less than 1 is going to be the probability of a blank, and then a dash or a 0.0 reflects a confirmed blank game week. On the right hand side, we have the summation of all those kind of probabilities, which will give you the final sum of fixtures that these teams still do have left. So let's go on that kind of talking point first. You guys can see on the right hand side, 14 fixtures still to be played for Leicester, Arsenal and Everton. And I do think if you guys are going to be wildcarding in game week 29, because you don't really have to focus on double game week 28, blank game week 27, double game week 26, and you guys only have kind of a game week 29 and 30 to focus on, I do think you should give some thought to these teams. And the reason for that is obvious. They have the most fixtures to be played between now and the end of the season, and therefore theoretically they have more chances to get you those points. In terms of the other side of the spectrum, we have 11 games to be played by a various number of teams. I might still avoid those, but if they do have some good fixtures still, because just remember, this diagram doesn't kind of incorporate fixture difficulty, but if they do have some great fixtures, for example, Man City have a nice run of green fixtures, I'll still be looking at bringing those players in. Now this wildcard draft will probably focus more on the short term, that's going to be double game week 29 and blank game week 30, but I'd also kind of edge ahead to blank game week 33 and double game week 33, which will be a combination because some teams blank and some teams have a good chance of doubling. Now please, if you guys have any questions about this graphic, drop it down below. I know I talk sometimes a little bit quickly and there's a lot of information to kind of digest, so pause the video if you want right now, take a look at this diagram and then you can unpause it when you're ready. So kind of looking at the short term, as I mentioned, double game week 29 and blank game week 30, there's only a few select teams that actually double and then have a blank fixture in 2 consecutive game weeks. Now those 2 teams are going to be Spurs and Arsenal, so nice little North London derby that's going to be happening in your FPL team selection, but I do still think that those 2 teams are my favorites to bring in if you guys are going to wildcard this game week. If we look a little bit ahead to blank game week 33, there are some teams that are rumored to be blanking: Aston Villa, Leeds, and then also Wolves. And this is because they're actually the opposition to the teams still in the FA Cup. Now the reason they are blanking is because the probability of Chelsea, Man City, and Liverpool all going through to the semi-finals of the FA Cup, which will happen in blank game week 33, is quite high. And therefore I'd watch out for these players, but you also have 2 weeks to navigate it. And then the final talking point I wanted to just address is that this draft does not free it in blank game week 30. And the reason I've done that is that I personally don't think blank game week 30 is a good usage of the free it. But I guess if you guys do have 2 free hits, you can also navigate blank game week 30 like that. I personally would opt for blank game week 33 / double game week 33 free it, or just use the free it later in the season for one of the doubles in 36 or 37. But now that we've kind of spoken about the game week schedule, I want to just do a little bit of a reflection on double game week 29's fixtures, even though we did quite a good analysis yesterday. So no, I'm not going to be going over kind of every team, picking out which fixtures good or which fixtures bad. I'm going to give you guys all of them on the screen right now and talk to you guys about what teams I would focus on. So the teams I'd probably be avoiding is going to be Brighton. I think those fixtures are too hard on paper, and also that Brighton side hasn't been playing that well defensively and from an attacking point of view recently, so they're an avoid for me. And then I would also probably avoid Newcastle, unless you guys want to bring in a cheap goalkeeper like a Dubravka. The forwards, Fraser, Willock, those players have actually been performing quite well. Gucci St. Maxim should be returning to the lineup pretty shortly, but I still would have probably focused on Dubravka over those other options. And the final team to focus on, or not focus on, is probably going to be Everton after their pretty dismal performance last night against Spurs. Now, these are 2 home games, and they are in a relegation battle at the current moment. So I did mention in the previous video that they could grind out these games, but I still do think it's too risky to go for, and therefore I probably would be avoiding. But if you guys want to take a massive punt, I guess you could go for a Pickford or a defender, or maybe a DCL. He only returned from injury and didn't look that great against Spurs. Or maybe even a Richarlison, or maybe go someone cheap like a Gordon. I think Gordon's probably the only player I would push just because they haven't been playing quite well. But as you saw on the prior game week schedule, they do have a few games to be rearranged. But then going to the 3 teams that I would focus on, and generally I think this is pretty common knowledge, they're 3 pretty good teams. It's Liverpool, Spurs, and then Arsenal. So Arsenal and Spurs I would focus on a little bit more just because of that blank game week fixture. In terms of the double game weeks, not the best fixtures in the world. Spurs take on United away and then Brighton away. I think that Brighton game is definitely one to focus on. But United also recently haven't been playing that well, and I guess if they lost 4-1 to Man City, maybe Spurs can put a couple past them. In terms of Arsenal, 2 home fixtures, Leicester and Liverpool, both those 2 games are quite hard. I don't really favour the defence that much, but I think the attack is going to be pretty good. A Saka, Martinelli, a Lacazette, all these 3 options should probably be in your minds because of that blank game week 30 fixture as well. And then finally Liverpool, Brighton away, Arsenal away, not the best fixtures in the world like double game week 26, but I still do think Liverpool can do quite well in these 2 games. It's just going to depend what triple up you go for. Salah, Trent are given, but do you triple up on a defender with a Robertson, or do you go more maverick and go for a Luis Diaz, Mane, or maybe even a Jota? But overall, double game week 29's fixtures aren't that great, but there still are some hidden gems here, and I think with those fixtures upcoming, I would jump on some of these teams. But with all the planning analysis done on the fixtures and the game week schedule, now let's get on to this double game week 29 wildcard draft. So as I always do, I talk about the bench first of all. So the bench is going to be pretty cheap, but also has some options that could come in if you need them. It's going to be Ben Foster on the bench, and to be honest with you guys, the only reason Ben Foster is here is because he's cheap, and I think for the upcoming game weeks, if you're not going to bench boost, a cheap goalkeeper is perfectly fine. Southampton away, which isn't the best fixture in the world, but Watford have been playing better at the current moment. But as I said, pretty much only here because he's cheap, and I'm expecting my starting goalkeeper to play most game weeks. Then going to the rest of our bench, we have a Wolves flavour and an Aston Villa flavour. Saiss and Hwang coming in as our 2 Wolves options. Now I would definitely be checking their game against Watford in the midweek, or at least on Thursday, just to make sure that Saiss is still in the starting 11 after dip in form, apparently according to the Wolves fans. Wolves in the first game of double game week 28 looked completely shot defensively, but I still would include him here just because of blank game week 30. Jacob Ramsey, another option that might be a little bit annoying to owners just because Aston Villa won 4-0 and he didn't get any returns from an attacking point of view, but I still do think at 4.8 million, great value for money. And then finally, Hwang as our forward of choice. Now you guys might be asking me here, why did I not go for Breuer? But the thing is, I would bench Breuer anyway, and then he blanks in game week 30. So I'd rather go with Hwang and just hope he starts against Leeds in blank game week 30. So in terms of the bench, pretty cheap here, but as I said, if you're not going to be bench boosting, I think this is perfectly fine from now to the end of the season. But now going on to our starting 11, where we have stacked the double game week players, at least for double game week 29. Going to start off with the defensive side of things with Ramsdale in goal. And now I think you guys can understand why I said I'll probably be playing Ramsdale from now to the end of the season, basically every week. The nice thing about him is that Arsenal have a ton of games to be rearranged, and therefore should be having a couple of doubles coming up from now to the end of the season. Leicester, Liverpool, as I mentioned, not great from a defensive point of view. So I'm just kind of hoping that Ramsdale can get some save points, as then there could be a mini haul in there. The rest of the defense pretty much picks itself. Anyone on a wild card is going to have a flavor of Liverpool, Chelsea, and then finally Spurs. So I've decided to go with a double up in the defense of Liverpool with Trent and Robbo. I think both of these 2 players should be nailed for the double, and at least you're getting 2 options that have a chance of a clean sheet in this double game week. Now Robertson has actually been rivaling Trent in terms of the kind of attacking threat, and therefore I think a double up, even though they are quite expensive, is quite necessary. Now going on to Reece James, what's there more to say about Reece James? But the fact of the matter is that if he does play a full 90 against a Norwich in the midweek, he might be a little bit of a rotation risk for Newcastle on the weekend. Now I'm saying this because Newcastle happens 3 days after that Norwich game, and Reece James has only come back from a long-term injury. Now if Reece James does get his minutes managed, I would definitely be bringing him in just for that attacking threat, as we saw on the weekend against Burnley. I just think one of the best defenders to own in the game if he is going to be fit. That Newcastle game to me is a great fixture for Chelsea, as the defense is pretty solid and James is practically a midfielder. And then our final defender to go for has had massive hype after last night, coming off that Leeds game with the 10+ point appearance, and then coming off last night's game against Everton with yet another 10-point appearance in consecutive game weeks. It's going to be Doherty against United and then Brighton. So Sessegnon came off last night at halftime with an apparent injury, so Reguilon could be quite an attractive option if Sessegnon is going to be out for a long amount of time. But I just think that Doherty looks so good going forward, I just hope he plays all of the games. And I think that's the major concern there about Doherty, is if he does start 3 games in the next 2 game weeks. I personally have him kind of pinned in for 2 games, but that still might be enough for a haul. So I do think this defense is absolutely stacked, and I think there's going to be some massive hauls in this upcoming double. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think, or would you maybe rotate one of these options out for someone else? We're then going to move on to our midfield department, where probably the captain is going to be the one and only Salah against Brighton and Arsenal. In my own team, probably going to be my triple captain for this upcoming game week. I definitely think he's one of the players to have, even though there might be some rotation after the upcoming international break. The nice thing about Salah as well is that you can downgrade him to practically anyone just because he is so expensive, and you can just take a -4 hit to spread the funds if need be. We then move on to the new man from Spurs, the Swedish Ginger. It's going to be Kulusevski against United and Brighton. Great form at the current moment. There might be occasional rotation with a Lucas Moura or a Bachvein, but I generally think that Kulusevski should be getting that starting spot after his good form for Spurs. At 6.1 million, an absolute steal, and if you guys have had him for the prior game weeks, you'll understand why it's such a good value for money. Our next midfielder is going to be Harvey Barnes. Hopefully he scores a couple of equalizers against Arsenal, and with the upcoming game against Brentford in the blank game week, I think it's a good option to kind of look at. My personal favorite Leicester option, you guys might argue, a Jamie Vardy, but I think Harvey Barnes is in slightly better form, and I do think he's less injury prone and more nailed in a starting 11. Now, like in Arsenal, Leicester have a ton of games to be rearranged, and therefore I think for the upcoming double game weeks is a must-have. Our final midfielder is going to be Martinelli from Arsenal. Yet again, I just needed some value. I would 100% have Saka in here, but Martinelli is not too bad of an option as a downgrade. There might be some rotation with the Smith Rowe, but currently he is in good form, and therefore I think Arteta should be starting in most games. I really do like the double game week from an attacking point of view. I think Leicester have conceded a few chances. Liverpool, even against West Ham, looked a little bit susceptible to the counter-attack, and I think that could lead into Arsenal's hands. And the final department to go over is going to be the attack. Like Martinelli, Lacazette here, a greater kind of forward to go for. 2 assists in game week at 28 against Watford. And I think against Leicester and Liverpool, there could be more in the bag. The next option though is going to be a no-brainer. It's going to be Harry Kane, one of the most informed players at the current moment in the Premier League. I just watched him against Everton last night. I know that Everton did play quite badly, but Harry Kane was all over the park. I think Conte asked him what position he wanted to play, and he just said yes, because he was absolutely everywhere, pinging balls in behind the defense and even getting on some crosses. Amazing volley for that second goal, I think, and that's why the English forward is back in form and therefore should be back in your wildcard draft. There could be a slight consideration for captaincy even heading into double game week 29, but Spurs are a little bit unpredictable, and therefore I might just keep it on Mo Salah. But overall, guys, I really do like this wildcard drafting. If you guys are going to choose to wildcard now, you can take advantage of this upcoming double, take advantage of the blank game week, and then head on to this upcoming game weeks with a really strong starting 11 and bench. Talking about that blank game week 30, what I wanted to just show you guys here is how the team would set up next game week, because I do think if you guys are going to wildcard this game week, you should have a good team for next one. So right off the bat, the players that will blank will be Foster, Trent, Robbo, James, and then finally also Salah. So yes, you guys probably counted that right. We have 5 players out here, and our bench only has 4 options. So yes, you'll only be going into blank game week 30 with 10 players. But what's that, FPL? You get 1 free transfer before every single game week. So yes, you can use your 1 free transfer to get a full starting 11. Now, who that player is going to be, it could be a Robbo or a Trent downgrade, maybe even a Salah downgrade, depending on what you guys want to do. And you might even want to bank the transfer and just head into blank game week 30 with 10 players. But who are those 10 players going to be? Well, let's start off with the defense. It's going to be Ramsdale against Aston Villa. We've got Doherty against West Ham at home. And then finally, Saiss against Leeds. So in terms of the defense, I don't know how many clean sheets are going to come here. Saiss against Leeds is a little bit of a concern, especially if he's going to be out of the lineup in this upcoming game against Watford. So keep your eyes on that, and you can always just chop and change him for whatever you want. Doherty, tough game against West Ham. I think it's going to be quite a cagey one. Could be a clean sheet and maybe hopefully some attacking returns as well. Ramsdale, though, against the high-flying Aston Villa side, don't you know how that game's going to go, but at least with Ramsdale, we always do get a few save points. Going on to the midfield department, which is slightly more entertaining, we've got Kulusevski against West Ham, Barnes against Brentford, Martinelli, Aston Villa, then finally Ramsey against Arsenal. So the one player I'm pretty excited about is going to be Harvey Barnes, just because Brentford have been conceding a few in the prior game weeks, do look quite strong going forward, but defensively aren't that secured, and I think Harvey Barnes could expose them with that ball in behind. To be honest, I know that Son and Kane will probably be the popular captaincy options, but I do think Harvey Barnes is the differential one to go for. And then finally in our forward line, we've got Lacazette against Aston Villa, Harry Kane versus West Ham, then finally Hwang versus Leeds. So Hwang's the only concern in that forward line. He might start, he might not, he might play if Raul Jimenez does, might be benched. It's kind of up in the air of what happens with the South Korean, but I guess if you're going to include him as a 5.4 forward, you don't really mind if he does come off the bench late on. But Lacazette has a good potential against Aston Villa's side that a little bit hit or miss, and Harry Kane against West Ham is a London derby, so I'm pretty sure he'll be up for that. In terms of captaincy, I think it's no-brainer here, go for Harry Kane, but if you want to go differential, go for Harvey Barnes. But just to conclude, this is going to be the wildcard draft for double game week 29. I know it might be a little bit templatey, but you guys can adjust it however you do, please. Upgrade, downgrade, however you want, and then drop it in the comments down below once you've finished. But this is basically wrap up the video, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy it. Please don't forget to like if you did and subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. I'll be seeing you guys for the team selection and also the ultimate guide / trip strategy video coming up tomorrow and also on Thursday. Hopefully the games in double game week 28 are in our favor and we head up with a nice green arrow into game week 29. But I'm signing off. It's been Dayvy FPL and I'm out. Cheers. Bye.